Storage Manager is the area on our Synology NAS that lets you essentially configure all of your storage. All right, we'll look at that right now. We've obviously now given you a bit of an introduction around things such as RAID, so go and watch the previous video if you want to learn a little bit more. Future videos will go into a lot more detail around how to create specific things within Storage Manager. This video just provides you a bit of an overview, a bit of a summary on Storage Manager itself. So logged into our DSM, I'm logged in as an administrator, which is generally good practice if you want to go and change certain configs. And then we've got a little main menu on the very top left-hand corner. There's a whole bunch of apps within here, including your package center, including your control panel, your file station, all of these things. But we're specifically looking at Storage Manager over here. Now, of course, the beauty about the Synology NAS, of course, is that you're going to use it to store data. Your Synology NAS is going to have a space to insert hard drives, multiple hard drives, and then those hard drives you can create relevant storage pools, relevant volumes, relevant RAID groups within your Synology NAS so that you can take advantage of the benefits of a NAS over a standard hard drive, right? That's, of course, the whole point of this. So within Storage Manager, let's go through a little bit of an overview around each of these areas. The first one is that the system is healthy. That's great. Everything is looking good. That's the very first step. I would recommend going into here and sort of checking out what's going on because if things are going a little bit wrong, it'll give you warnings ahead of time so that you can prevent things from going wrong in future. Then you've got your storage pools. Now this is, of course, we go into detail on each of the tabs on the left, but this is a summary in the overview section where you've got the storage pools. At the moment I've got one volume, so it's just called volume 1. My volume is healthy. It's a 7.8 terabyte volume. All right, so the volume itself is 7.81 terabytes. It's called Storage Pool 1, and it's got a volume called Volume 1. All right, and at the moment, it's 4.6 terabytes used against my 7.8 terabytes. So that's essentially how that looks, okay? Storage pool, here's the ID, it's healthy. It's made up of a hybrid RAID, SHR, which of course is our Synology hybrid RAID. And of course, you can configure other sorts of RAID configurations if you so want to. But with this one, it's got the OneDrive fault tolerance and it's more customized specific to Synology, okay? And then my total capacity of this storage pool is 8.2 terabytes. Here it is, my drive information. 4 of my disks are used. So this particular Synology NAS, what we do in this demo, has 4 bays. If you've got a larger Synology NAS or a smaller, a 2 bay, for example, then you'll only see the disks that are relevant for you. But in my case, I've already gone and configured 4 disks against my Synology NAS, right? So 4 disks against this particular storage pool and then the RAID and everything that sort of comes along with it. Let's look at volumes in a second. Here I've got my storage pool. Okay, so I've gone and created a brand new storage pool in here. And essentially what the storage pool is I'm grabbing all of my disks and I'm making them into what's called a storage pool or a pool of disks together. And I've created them under a RAID type of the Synology hybrid RAID type. So you see that the total capacity is 8.17 terabytes, but available capacity is 0. So what does that mean? Well, all that means is the disks that I've got, here are my 4 drives 1, 2, 3, 4, my total drive size, they've been created into a Synology hybrid RAID type. I've allocated that entire storage, right, that 8.17 terabytes, to storage pool 1. Okay, that's all that means. It doesn't mean that it's physically using 8.17 terabytes of, I don't have 8.17 terabytes of data on this particular pool, but it's more that I've allocated all the disks against that pool. So you'll see that because of that, I can't create an additional storage pool because I've got no more available disks or drives to be able to create an additional storage pool. But if your Synology NAS is bigger, if you're running one of the more enterprise 16, 32 bay, you could potentially create a storage pool with 4 disks, then create another storage pool with 4 disks, and then you'll actually see that the available capacity may be more or less depending on the quantity of disks that you've got. Okay, you'll see that the 4 disks are here, and you see that the allocation status is normal, and then the health of each individual disk is healthy. Now, the other information here on my storage pool is available hot spare drives. Well, at the moment, I've got none. So if I'm talking about hot spares, I'm talking about a disk that is readily available in the event that I need to replace one of the disks that may fail. So for example, in this case, I've got 4 drives in here, but they're all being used for my RAID. I could have potentially allocated only 3 drives for a particular RAID type, and then have allocated 1 drive as a spare. And the spare is just sitting there. It's not doing anything. It's just sitting hot. It means it's turned on, and it's a spare drive. And then in the event that a drive fails, I can then reallocate that hot spare and then add it back into my RAID. So it's just another level of protection, another level of redundancy for your storage, having 1 or more hot spares. So I would recommend, if you've got a larger NAS, good practice to always have a hot spare readily available. Even better is then better to have some cold spares available. And of course, a cold spare is a disk that is cold. So it's not turned on. It's perhaps outside of the NAS. You've just got it in a cupboard somewhere, and it's ready in the event that you need to swap a disk if a disk fails or has an issue on your Synology NAS. Okay, here's my storage allocation. So you'll see that out of my storage pool 1, right, which is made up of my 4 disks, there is 1 volume that I've got right there. So I've created 1 volume on my storage pool 1, total capacity of 7.85 terabytes, and it's only using 4.56 terabytes right in there, okay? And that's the file system that it's using. So before I go into volume, let's just look at in here. So here is the 4 disks, drive 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see a little bit more information about these. You can do the health, you can do the locate drive, you can see some other stuff. We'll look at this in a little bit more detail in future videos, but you can actually see the actual disks in there and see more information. Here is some information around your hot spares. At the moment, there is no hot spares, but we talked about that just before. So you can actually go and manage and assign hot spares to specific storage pools automatically. It'll then use that disk if it needs to, and then you're good to go. SSD cache is something else that we won't cover in this course, but some Synology NASs allow you to add faster disks called SSDs. In some case, you can actually buy a specific type of SSD hard drive that you can insert into your Synology NAS, and it just acts as a cache or a cache spare for your Synology. So your Synology NAS will run a little bit better. Your Synology NAS will automatically read and write data to this SSD cache or cache drive, and you're going to potentially get better performance out of that. But that is generally going to be an additional storage area on a Synology NAS, additional disks on a Synology NAS themselves, okay? So that's the basic summary there. Back into volume here, you'll see that we did create 1 volume, all right? So remembering, storage pool, I've created 1 storage pool out of all my disks, and I've allocated all the disks against the storage pool. I've then gone and created a volume, and I've allocated the volume against the entirety of the storage pool. So I cannot create any more volumes. But I would recommend, if you've got a lot more capacity, if you're doing this in a business, in an enterprise, then you create multiple volumes against 1 or more storage pools. Now, in my case, I've allocated the entire amount of my storage pool against 1 volume, which is what you see right here. You see a lot more information around the specific volume itself. Now, the volume is physically where the data is sitting, right? So the volume is for example, I'll have an SMB share. I can access my volume 1. I can see all the data on it. And then the volume is sitting on top of a storage pool, which is made up of a RAID type of Synology hybrid RAID, and that is made up of 4 physical disks. So there are multiple levels when we're looking at the storage, and this is on the storage manager. Okay, so here's the volume. I can go into action. I can see some further information. I can configure some things in here, if you want to. We're not going to cover too much stuff on here, but how much is allocated, storage pool name, the description. You can change some other things. You can then remove your volume if you so choose to, and then you can create additional volumes if you need to as well. So here we have another Synology NAS. This one is slightly bigger. You'll see that from the storage manager section. I've got 4 used drives. 1 is actually allocated as a hot spare, 5 available slots. It's made up of a volume, 1, 2, and 3 volumes, and it's also made up of 2 storage pools, one that is healthy and one that is currently verifying some drives because it was just created. Here is the size. Here is the size of each of these 2 storage pools, and then the 3 volumes, which storage pool they're assigned against, right? Excellent. So let's just go into our storage pool section right here. Here are our 2 storage pools. The first one being storage pool 1, you'll see that it's made up of 2 hard drives right there. Both are 3 terabytes, or really it's been seen as a 2.73 terabyte drives, 2 of them. And then my hot spare, which is just sitting there waiting to be used in the event that I need to apply anything to an actual storage pool. It's got 2 volumes assigned against it, and I've actually allocated really 1 terabyte and 300 gig of capacity against each of these 2 volumes. And you'll see that right from here is that the total capacity of storage pool 1 is 2.72 terabytes, or just under 3 terabytes, because both of these are in a RAID. Used capacity is 1.27 terabytes, and that's because the 2 volumes on here totaling 1.27 terabytes. So that's what I've used, and that's why it says used. It doesn't physically mean that the used capacity is 1.27. It's just that the used on the storage pool is already allocated at 1.27 terabytes. But as a result of this, I've got 1.45 terabytes available. So I can actually go and create a further storage pool, a further volume if I so choose to. Then I've got storage pool 2. This one is made up of 2 other hard drives, different sizes each. The hot spare is there if I need to, and then 1 volume applied against it. Now in this case, you'll see that it doesn't say healthy on this one. That's because this one has just been created. So it's actually in the process of verifying these drives in the background, and that will take a little bit of time. So volumes, here are my 3 volumes, 1, 2, 3, and the information around the sort of RAID that's been used, the storage pool that it's a part of, and the size, total capacity, used capacity, and available capacity. My 5 hard drives, all are healthy, that's great. Now in the case of this one, as I said before, I've got an available 5 slots if I want to add anything more. And then my hot spare available there, which is assigned and can be applied to one of my storage pools if it so needs to. So there you have an overview of the storage manager across 2 of our Synology NASs. This one, of course, having 2 storage pools, the other one having just the 1. And you can clearly see the differences between the storage pools, how you allocate the disks against it, the hot spares, and then the volumes, and how all of the used total capacities, available capacities are all sort of calculated against each of these units.